Have you ever wondered who is Ash's father? The man who left Pallet Town for his journey, just like Delia mentioned in episode 2?
You're already in Viridian City? It took your father 4 days to get there when he started Pokemon training. Oh, he'll be so proud.
Well, I think we may have an answer for that, because we're going to be ranking all of Ash's potential fathers by probability. Basically, who is the most likely candidate for Ash's dad based on the evidence we know. The reason why I wanted to make this video is because not only do we know his dad is out there traveling somewhere, but also since our actual probability of seeing Ash's dad in the anime isn't entirely out of the realm of possibility either. Yes, while we didn't see Ash's dad in Ash's last series, Pokemon Journeys, we did get a hint in one of Ash's special episodes where he just missed seeing his dad because he was late to lunch. This tells us a few things we will need to know, but the fact Pokemon is still giving us hints of his father could insinuate that in a future series when they bring Ash back for the show or movie, we very well might finally see his dad. So without further ado, let's start off with the least potential father figure that people have speculated to be Ash's male parent but wouldn't work based on what we know. Starting with Ash's dad being... Yes, some people actually believe this. The theory goes like, Ash's dad somehow turned into a Pikachu either by accident during his journey or on purpose, and somehow wound up being the Pikachu Oka gave Ash in episode 1. The reasoning behind Pikachu being Ash's father is because it would explain why Ash and his Pikachu are so close to each other throughout the show. It would explain how Ash can understand his Pikachu, why he brings him everywhere he travels, and it'd just be an interesting little story between why they have such a good relationship in the anime. But there are a ton of things wrong with this theory, that being Pikachu didn't act nice to Ash when they first met. In fact, it was quite the opposite. The second being, we now know Pikachu's origins thanks to Pokemon Journeys episode 1, as the whole episode is showing Pikachu being a Pichu, who evolves and eventually winds up at Professor Oak's lab for Ash to have. So Pikachu being Ash's dad goes into the no category, as there's no way Pikachu is Ash's father. The next candidate is... This is a character from the Alola region that acted the most like a father figure toward Ash, so I thought he should at least be mentioned here. When Ash arrived in Alola for a vacation, he really enjoyed his stay and didn't want to leave, especially after finding out about the Pokemon school and the Pokemon that inhabit the region. However, he wasn't traveling and camping like he usually does. Instead, he was invited to live at the Professor of Alola, Kukui's house. This was the first time ever we've seen Ash live at a home for one of his series. Kukui and Ash have whole episodes dedicated to Ash doing chores around the house, watching their favorite TV show, The Master Royale, and training on the beach. That and the Pokemon school where Professor Kukui teaches at makes the relationship like a father mentoring and bonding with his son, something Ash never had before. This only further gets enhanced when Kukui and Professor Burnett have a kid at the end of the Alola series in Journeys, making Ash feel like an older brother in their family. However, while Kukui felt most like Ash's dad, he's in the no category because Kukui is not his blood-related father. Or is he? The next potential father is... Ash's dad is dead. Some have spoken about the possibility that Ash's father died maybe by random or in the Pokemon War, a giant war of people and Pokemon where many trainers fought and died in, most including male adults. This is essentially meant to explain why there are no father figures for the mainline games like for Red and Blue. At least it's alluded to in the games by Lieutenant Surge mentioning the Pokemon War to the player, and since Ash is based off Red, it makes sense that his dad also shared that same fate of him dying in the war. Yet none of this was ever confirmed. In fact, outside of the manga and games, there have been no mention of the Pokemon War in the anime. But what really defeats this theory is one of Ash's last appearances in the special episode called Distant Blue Sky. In the beginning of the episode, we hear from Delia Ketchum that Ash's dad is coming to visit them later for lunch, and we actually could have gotten the answer to this if we saw Ash's dad in that episode. However, he just missed him because apparently Ash's dad was too busy. But yeah, this confirms Ash's dad is still alive, and while you could say, oh, that's just the AU universe Ash, not the canon one. While that's true, however, with this, and the fact Delia mentioned Ash's dad taking 2 days to get to Vermilion City, makes it clear enough Ash's dad is still around journeying somewhere, making the possibility of Ash's dad being dead go in the no category. Okay, this character would actually be pretty cool being Ash's father, and that is... Sir Aaron was a character in the Lucario and the Mystery of Mew movie, and he was held in high honor for being a super strong aura wielder and sacrificing himself to help stop the Pokemon War long ago. A few hundred years later, Ash would encounter Sir Aaron's Lucario, who sensed him as his trainer because of Ash's strong aura powers. And this is why people speculate that Ash could be related to Sir Aaron, because no other person in the anime outside of Ash can use aura like he can. The only other character we saw using aura was Riley, who is another aura guardian in Sinnoh. Yet Ash, for not even training, has insane aura powers, being able to use them to save the world in the Lucario movie and to bond with Pokemon like in Sinnoh with Riolu. All in all, he's going in the unlikely category because there's not too much else going for this other than aura, but it would be cool though. Next one, this is a classic. This is one of the oldest theories on Ash's dad because Giovanni has some links to Ash. Giovanni is the head of Team Rocket who rules over Kanto, the region Ash is from. Giovanni also has ties with Professor Oak as they were friends when they were young. And since Oak shares a good relationship with both Ash and his mom, it makes this possibly make sense. As Giovanni plans to rule the world, Oak steps in and takes care of the Ketchums in whom he abandoned. Also, this would explain why Team Rocket is constantly following Ash so Giovanni can see what his son is up to. I like that, except for the fact Ash and Giovanni did meet for the first time in Black and White in person, and neither of them recognized each other. So unless Giovanni purposefully didn't acknowledge Ash and Ash doesn't know Giovanni is his dad, I think it's safe to say they aren't related. Also, in the AU universe of Ash, he knows who his dad is, as mentioned in the movie Secrets of the Jungle, where Ash explained that his dad told him his famous phrase to never give up if you want to reach your goals.
When I was little, I told some other kids about my goal, and they laughed at me. But my dad told me something I never forgot. The map to your goal is inside yourself. If you give up, your dream's never gonna come true.
It just doesn't make much sense for it to be Giovanni in the present day, so I'm going unlikely for this one. But speaking of Professor Oak, we're on... This might outclassic the other classic, honestly. Professor Oak, like mentioned, has always been seen lurking with Delia Ketchum throughout the anime pretty much in every series, and their relationship together is very close and both are tied directly toward Ash. Some compare Oak and Ash because they look very similar to each other, however that's up to you. I think it's kinda hard to say that this is Ash's dad other than the fact him and Delia are like glue in this series. Like, I'm not even kidding, it does look suspicious after a while where Ash is calling his mom an XY and Professor Oak is just lurking in the background. Other than that, there's not much to say. It would mean that Gary Oak is his uncle and they're like the same age, plus Professor Oak doesn't seem like the guy to be busy to visit Ash when he's on his travels. All in all, it's a bit weird, and for that, Oak is in the unlikely category. It just doesn't make much sense. What really doesn't make much sense, but is technically still in the realm of possibility, is... Yes, we already mentioned Pikachu, and that was not possible because we know Pikachu's origin, but Mr. Mime on the other hand doesn't have such lore. First off, the reason people think Mr. Mime is Ash's father is Mr. Mime, like Oak, is always with Ash's mom. And that's pretty much it. I'm not gonna lie, whoever thinks this is actually Ash's dad, literally Ash caught Mr. Mime. He even used him in battle in Journeys. Like, okay, yeah, at first I was gonna put this in the unlikely tier, but no, Mr. Mime is going in the no tier. What even is this theory? Okay, moving on to a plausible figure. I think this would be more realistic as Red is the Kanto game's main character whose goals outside of the games is to become champion and complete the Pokédex. It's possible Red is in the Ashverse, we just haven't seen him yet as he's older now, settling down with Delia to have Ash follow in his footsteps. Although Ash's dad is still said to be on the move, so again it could be Red is still journeying elsewhere, although the problem with that theory is that Red nor Blue are in the Ashverse anime. They got adapted to being Ash and Gary, a different character based on their game's counterparts, yet they were never adapted necessarily on their own. This fan theory is mainly one that sounds cool but doesn't have much proof suggesting it's true, but since there isn't much proof to completely deny it either, we can throw Red in the possible tier. This next one is very similar to what I just went over, and it's... Now, you may be confused on what just another Ash is. What I mean by that is, Ash's dad could just be a carbon copy of what Ash already is, but a father version instead, where Ash's dad's journey is also never ending, like Ash's, to become a Pokemon Master, and he never settles in one place. However, unlike Ash, his dad actually ages past 10. At least, I would hope so. Again, this is an interesting idea for sure. It would explain why we don't see him, yet I feel like if it was an actual Ash clone, he would at least be with his son more. This one's going in the possible category for being, well, possible. Alright, I think we might have our first character that we've seen that actually makes sense. That is... This dude was a random trainer we met in Pokemon Chronicles, and if you never heard or watched that show, it's basically the first Pokemon spin-off series that heavily shows off Misty, Brock, Richie, Tracy, and a few others without Ash. And because it doesn't feature Ash, it almost makes more sense Ash's father would appear when he isn't there because Pokemon kinda has this syndrome where that's what they do. The main thought process behind why so many speculate this to be his father is because of how similar they look. They both got that spiky hair, the stern attitude, Pokemon on their shoulder that's always outside its Pokeball, and they both want to become the strongest trainer. Plus, literally Silver hung out with Ash's counterpart Richie for the entire episode. It would just make sense Richie accidentally bumped into Ash's dad while he was journeying. It's only that the Pokemon Company unfortunately has never once confirmed or hinted at this, which makes me have to put this at the probable tier. Another thing Pokemon never hinted at before, but something I think would be really awesome is... Now I know what you may be thinking. How would another Pokemon make sense for Ash's dad when it seems like his dad, at least in the AU universe, is an actual living person? Well, my answer to that is it's Arceus, and in the Pokemon world, that is basically God, the creator of all things. So, as the creator, you kinda can do whatever you want. For example, morph into a dad figure, have a son named Ash, not be around because you're busy being the creator of the universe, and in my opinion, this would explain a lot of things. Firstly, Ash being the son of God in the Pokemon universe, wow, we're going Christian, shout out to all my brothers and sisters in Christ. It would explain why he doesn't age, would explain why Ash doesn't die by things that would clearly kill him, it would explain the mystery of his absent father, would explain how he can use aura, and it would explain his persona as well. Ash is a very charismatic, outgoing, kind-hearted of a person who's pretty much always happy, except for when he loses a battle or when he's trying to prevent evil deeds from taking place. The point is, it would explain why he's main character energy, and how he gets himself in coincidental situations with world-ending plots and 1,000 other things. Honestly, I think it's the coolest option here and my personal favorite explanation, but I will say I think there's another that's more likely than this, only because it's a stretch. Or is it? Arceus, either way, is going in the probable tier. So, for the yes tier, this is the one with the highest likelihood of who Ash's father is in the anime, and I'm sure you're wondering right now, who is it? It's... Yeah, while this definitely isn't the flashiest answer, it's the most likely based off every single piece of media we know. Ash's father is alive and is still journeying based on the EU universe where Ash missed his father. We know he's a very busy man who is most likely on a journey or retired but working constantly. He's rarely ever around. In fact, other than that part with Delia saying Ash's father will come to eat with them later, that might just be the first time Ash could have got to meet his dad since he was a little boy. As we do have a photo of Ash's dad and a flashback of Ash when he was like 5, where we see a blurred face of his dad standing with a Rapidash. So we do know what Ash's father looks like, canonically at least, but you might be wondering, have we seen this guy in the anime before? Well, it turns out we actually have. His name is John Dixon. That's right, the guy who beat Harrison in the Silver League Conference in Johto and became the Johto League champion. Furthermore, John Dixon also uses a Rapidash in the battle, which is crazy. Out of all the Pokemon he could have showed off, it's the same one from the picture. And the fact, in the short 20 seconds he was shown off in the anime, they said his name like 5 times to make sure you know it was
John Dixon, John Dixon, Dixon, John Dixon, John Dixon.
John Dixon. In all seriousness, I don't think it's him. Maybe you could say it's John Dixon's father because John himself doesn't look old enough to have settled down with Delia 10 years ago and have Ash. Regardless of whoever his father is, most likely he's just a random dude we've never seen before on screen, but is roaming around not seeing his son, basically the deadbeat we all kind of picture him as. Or Delia was just making up the whole Ash is gonna visit his dad to eat later because she doesn't want Ash to ever know his dad and not tell Ash he isn't around so he doesn't have his feelings hurt. Delia could just always be making excuses saying Ash just missed him every time, again so Ash isn't sad that his dad is a loser or gone forever. In conclusion, it's gotta be John Dixon. If you want to see this exact format but for figuring out who Ash's girlfriend is, check out the video on screen, I highly recommend it. Hope you enjoyed and I'll see you guys over there. Bye bye!